Thank you for joining our webinar today. I'm Annie Levan with PROJILITY. We'll be focused on the topic of delivering successful resource management with Microsoft Project, Teams, and Power BI. At PROJILITY, we've been implementing Microsoft Project and Portfolio Management solutions for over 18 years for large enterprises, everything from engineering, construction, IT, and new product development. PMOs and CIOs typically come to us when they can't easily explain what's going on across all their projects. They don't know what resources are working on what work, and they have a hard time getting consistent reports, metrics, and dashboards to make project-based decisions. Here is today's agenda. We'll start with an overview of the challenges organizations face around project, resource, and work management, and then move to providing you with an overview of how Microsoft solutions can be deployed to support this need. Rob Hirschman, one of the partners at PROJILITY, will lead the discussion, including an overview and demonstration of the different Microsoft options. Towards the end, we'll go through providing you with guidance as to how you can select the right solution for you, as well as deliver good practices to help you move down the road to implementation. If you have questions as we work through the presentation, please add them to the questions and answer manager. It looks like a chat bubble at the top of your team screen. Let's get started. Introducing Rob, who will drive the presentation. Rob, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Annie, and thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate everybody's time. This session is actually based on a lot of feedback from a lot of our clients and prospects we've been working with over the past couple of years that really had an interest in doing better resource management. That's the ability to plan and manage your people as it relates to your projects. Without people, you can't deliver projects. That's the single biggest constraint we find a lot of our clients have. So just as an introduction, I'm Rob Hirschman, one of the partners here at PROJILITY. As Annie mentioned, we've been implementing these solutions for about 18 years for large enterprises. We've been in the PPM space for about a little over 20 years. Actually started using Microsoft Project in the late 90s to manage enterprise projects and programs, and kind of moved on from there to Microsoft and now PROJILITY. But just kind of getting into our content, what we're focused on today, the world of project management and how projects are managed really has changed over the last 10 years or so. It's moved from more traditional project management. We've seen the rise of agile project management and really kind of the emergence of a new modern style of what we call overall work management. And the Microsoft project team has taken this to heart. They actually use this to really drive where Microsoft is growing from a platform and tool perspective. And the vision here the Microsoft project has is really empowering organizations to achieve better results by aligning your investments in your projects as well as your resources. That's a really big part of this. So they take resources very, very seriously as it relates to project management, but also doing it with agility and flexibility and giving people options. There's not one way to do it when it comes to resource management, and allowing for collaboration, not only on a local, but a global basis. And in this end, Microsoft is also developing tools that are much more intuitive, that are consistent with what people expect today, as well as traditional project management tools, all available through the cloud platform. So if we look at this, very close alignment between what Microsoft is investing in, as well as things like project and resource management. If we kind of look at what we call the modern work management space, there's several problems that are typically looking to be addressed, whether it's transparency, versatility, the nature of projects, and managing project information needing to be very much more intuitive than traditional project management tools. These tools have to be very well integrated across systems and processes so people can more seamlessly work with them, and also being compliant to enterprise standards. So you have compliance and governance and secure and safe data. And you see kind of the two ones in blue circles here, really allowing teams to work the way they want to work with tools you're providing them from an enterprise perspective, but also allowing people with different levels of experience around project management to use visual tools to their jobs. Traditionally, project management was a discipline owned by the PMPs, or the folks that go through a PMI or different certifications. Well, we've seen the emergence of kind of the non-traditional business project manager over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's folks in the business, maybe in operations or finance or human resources, that need to manage projects but don't have traditional project management skills. And there's been a demand for those kind of tools in the marketplace, and Microsoft has really spent a lot of time investing in that area. So when we look at this, there are certain trends out there or challenges in the work and project management space that have really come together to drive this. And one of the key things is tasks. Microsoft has found that tasks are everywhere in an enterprise. You can find that, tasks are coming from folks on the business side. You have IT projects you're managing. And then in terms of the feedback they've gotten, a lot of this comes from different studies that have been done over the last 5 or 6 years. The first one talks about, agreeing that you need tools to do your jobs that collaborate and bring this information together. And 44% of the folks that were surveyed said they've really requested better tools to do their jobs because the current tools either don't meet the need or don't integrate the data properly. They found that 33% of the workers say the biggest single thing they want help with is actually having better processes and more intuitive tools that tie those processes together. 35% of these workers cited not being able to prioritize properly one of the two reasons they can't get work done. They don't know what to work on because they're getting really fed information from everywhere. And a lot of these workers agree they'd like more integrated tools to manage their work, their information, and share information up the ladder as they can. So 91%, as you see on the screen, really want more modern tools to do their jobs. Traditional tools are great, but modern tools, which are really built around modern users and modern project managers, are really key. And also, if you look at the number, the 10% number here, it's kind of telling that, the installed base of project management tools without going to IT, and that's kind of the dark IT or shadow IT, 10% of users who manage projects say they got their project management tool from someone other than IT. So there is a tremendous opportunity in the marketplace, and Microsoft sees this as well, to kind of bring those non-traditional project managers into the fold, as well as support the traditional project managers that are out there. Again, more data that are coming from these surveys, 51% said they're not using any kind of a tool to manage all the work like they'd like to. They're in a timesheet, they've got a light project management tool, maybe they got a spreadsheet, or they're using kind of a modern work management tool, but not one place or one platform to do their jobs. 58% said they're so busy with doing the day-to-day work, they really don't have time to actually come up with new solutions and new ideas. And that's the whole doing more with less. 67% of these folks said they're burned out on a regular basis. They have an unmanageable workload, and it's one of the top reasons why work isn't getting done. That's not a tools problem, that's a people problem and a process problem. But 47% of the respondents say easy access to the right information would make their jobs better. They'd be happier as employees, they'd be able to get more work done. So if we look at it, there's some prevalent trends that are in the marketplace that are really driving to more modern project management tools. And in surveys, what Microsoft and a lot of other industry experts have found is that project managers are using lots of different tools to do their jobs. We used to say that the biggest competitor to Microsoft Project was Excel. Most people will just pop into Excel because it's quick and easy and they can do what they want. But they use Project, they use SharePoint, they use OneNote, they have email, they may use To-Do, they may have kind of an agile system like a Jira or a DevOps, they may have different applications that are out there. They're using all kinds of different tools. And really the key here is bringing this together in a single set of tools in a single platform so people can manage their structured, their unstructured work all in the same place. So, how does Microsoft address this? And they tend to look at it like, we're all managing projects, whether we're professional project managers or we're kind of the business project managers. But a lot of folks don't have the formal project management training to do that. And that means they need different tools to do their jobs in the project management space. Everybody will tell you that collaboration is absolutely critical once it's defined, but the challenge is it's very chaotic on a day-to-day basis. Collaboration is happening, but it's happening in multiple places with multiple tools. We always want better ways to manage our work, to become more efficient, so we can be more successful at our jobs and contribute to the organizations we work for. But a lot of these older tools don't support that kind of flexibility. They're very rigid in the way they work. And because of these drivers, a lot of teams will start to either choose or build their own tools to be successful. What this leads to is a need to use our data much more efficiently, effectively. But the challenge is getting that data together and reporting on it and having a structure is very, very messy because it's coming from different places and it's not as structured. Additionally, at the end of the day, business folks need ways to make better decisions. But really, nobody has that top level picture of everything going on. And that's where some of these tools from Microsoft can really help. So if we take that and we kind of focus now just on the resource management challenge, we can say, what are some of the challenges that are out there? Well, the first one is, how do I answer the question about what are my people working on today? I've got a pool of folks, maybe they're developers or business analysts or folks in finance or IT or HR. How do I know what they're working on so I can gauge whether they're over, under allocated, whether I can give them more work? Do I just have a hallway conversation, or is there a way I can capture that data in a way that's meaningful that I can communicate, hey, my entire team is at 140%. I can't reasonably take on more work. I also need to answer the second question, when will my folks be available? And that's at an individual and it's also at a group level. So again, I can determine when I can take on more work. Are my people over allocated? Do they have more work than they can possibly take on? It's that burnout number that we showed you a couple of slides ago. And if so, how do I solve for that problem? Do I just assume my people are just going to keep taking on more work until they get completely burned out and leave? or I'm going to manage that in a way where I can move the work around to make sure people can be successful at their jobs and getting work done on projects and non-project activities. Another one is, and a really important question, how do I match this information up with all the incoming work that's coming from maybe the business or in our intake funnel or our demands that are coming in and all the potential projects we're thinking about doing? If I've got ongoing work going on and I'm taking on new projects, who are the people that's going to deliver that? Projects don't magically get done by themselves. They need resources to do it. I need to be able to reasonably look at that resource pool and determine who's available and what incoming work I have. And finally, how do I communicate this information to management? Do I have real data? So when I sit down maybe with the CFO or the CIO and say, hey, look, here's our current pipeline, here's our current workload, here's the challenge I'm having. Here are 2 or 3 different solutions to solving this problem. How do I communicate that in a way where you've got the data to back it all up? And they think, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Here's how I can help you do that. Whether it's more resources, funding for external resources, cutting back on the number of projects, reprioritizing the work. There's lots of different options around this. But these are some of the key driving questions that you find a lot of enterprises are asking, specifically around resource management. But what's really the problem? When we talk to a lot of clients, we find the key resource management problem is that on the left, you've got the project owners. And these are the people that want results. They have money, they have a business need, I need people to do the work. They want to get results from all of this. On the right, you've got the managers. These can be functional managers. Sometimes they're called resource managers, business prioritization managers. They're the ones that manage the people and the priorities. Their interests are in ensuring their people can be successful at their jobs. They manage the proper utilization of those resources. They're going to manage the skills associated with those and managing the different skills, making sure you have people with the right skills to meet the demand and the current workload you have. They're also the ones that are responsible for working with the HR to hire and retain different talent based on the active work in the pipeline. And they also have specializations, whether it's people that support specific applications or specific business processes. So you can see we have an immediate conflict here that you've got the owners on the left and the functional managers on the right. At the end of the day, everybody wants to do what's best for the business. But in looking at all the surveys we've done over the last couple of years, we found that 95% of the large enterprises across both industry and government named resource management as their single top challenge as it relates to project and portfolio management. Without the people, you can't do the work. And this is really what it comes down to. You never have enough resources. You have more than enough work to go around. You have very little data to support any kind of decision making around this. So this is just kind of mapped out the key challenge we're finding in a lot of organizations. So how do resources work today? And if we think about, are we functional matrix project? There's different ways organizations are structured. Starting on the left, functional management. This is traditional line management. This was very popular up through the late 80s or early 90s, where you have different line managers and they own specific resources. This has been kind of discontinued. About 5 or 10% of organizations today still run more of a line management approach. The map in the right is project-based management. This became very, very popular in the 90s and early 2000s when organizations went to more project-centric work. Or again, if you work in kind of a services organization, this is how you're organized every day. This is where you've got a project team, P1, P2, P3, and then you've got resources mapping to that project team, and they're dynamically moved around based off the needs of different projects. So there are project-based organizations that are out there. But in the middle, this is how we live today, matrixed organizations. It's a combination of line management, project management, product management as well. And also we have agile teams or scrum teams that are working together on different development and non-development activities. We see a big crossover there. We may have a resource that works in finance, but they may have a background in a certain system, and they may be working on projects for finance operations and HR and both a functional and an IT perspective. So matrixed organizations are really the way we see things today, the majority of organizations that are out there today. And then you have to think about how the work is structured in this type of an organization. And this is going to drive a lot about your tool selection and how you implement these tools, which we're going to show you some of the tools in a little bit. Tools can be structured in many, many different ways. But we also have to start thinking about, what's the resource work breakdown? How are people spending their time? And we tend to look at it as you've got kind of the KTLO or keep the lights on business as usual work. This is stuff your team is going to be doing every day, sitting in meetings, supporting certain systems, the non-project kind of stuff that they do, and it may be heavier in an infrastructure organization than an application organization, but individuals spend between 10 and 30 or 40% of their time on this. Administrative time, and this is things like paid time off, jury duty, sick leave, they're going to spend 5 to 10% of their time doing that or pure administrative activities. And then finally, you have project work. Again, these bubbles are all going to vary based off the group and the department and the type of work somebody does. But in a lot of these matrix organizations, you have 40 to 60% project work, 10 to 20% operational work, and then administrative time or administrative categories. This is really important to understand if you're thinking about doing resource allocation. You have to start thinking about, how do I want to allocate my people and what are they spending time on? And what do I want to measure here? Additionally, you add to this the split between traditional project management, which is project tasks and activities with dates and milestones and dependencies, and more agile or iterative work, where you're focused on product and feature releases and backlogs and activities. It gets kind of confusing. You start thinking about how do I manage and measure all of this information? And that challenge on the right is a really, really big one. This really became more prevalent over the last 10 years. We start breaking this out as we found that traditional project-based work can be forecasted. You can sit down and say, okay, how much of a person's time do I need to allocate to activities? What am I going to baseline? How am I going to track actuals? This is your traditional project management, your more waterfall type approach. Agile and iterative work is a lot more difficult to forecast. What we can do here is we can start to bucketize that to gain more consistency around our resources so we really understand about how much time we're spending on agile types of activities. But remember, in an agile world, there's no baseline. We do have targets of what we're trying to deliver, but we don't have a baseline of I'm going to assign 40 hours to this resource over the next 20 days, and then they're going to spend X amount of time on that. It's a rolling forecast. And that's one of the challenges is managing resources in an agile environment. They're assigned to agile teams, but they may also have waterfall work, and they may also have ATLO and administrative activities. So it's really a balance, especially in a hybrid world of gaining that. It's a much more team-based approach when we're looking at agile. And where agile teams are going to pick up tasks and activities once other activities are completed. We don't always know what the forecast is going to look like. It's very, very hard to forecast resources. And in an agile world, again, we're much more product centric. We're trying to do product delivery versus projects, tasks, and assignments. So it's really a different language. We track different levels of detail, and we can be tracking that, honestly, and it's in another system. A lot of our clients actually do their agile work management in Azure DevOps or Jira or a system like that. And that's really where that data is stored and tracked. So you have to start thinking about what type of work you have, the categories of it, and then the types of it in order to determine what you're going to track and how you're going to track and manage that information. So, from a definition level, what is capacity planning? Capacity planning from a process perspective, it's a combination of a tool and a process to allow you to understand the resources that are needed within your organization or your group or your department to meet the future workload demands that are coming. And that can include increased demand, increased capacity, deploying a new system, deploying new processes, whatever it is. You want to understand the capacity. It really requires two things. The first is determining the current resources required to support what you have today. What's your active work? You really have to have a good picture of the inventory of all the stuff you have going on today for the people you're managing. You want to then be able to compare that to the future needs you have, what's in the pipeline, what you're being asked to deliver going forward. If you can get a good picture of that, you can start to determine how many resources you need to meet the capacity needs of your group, department, or organization. And then you can do what's underlined here, set realistic expectations. That's the most important part. So if your projects are all late and it's because of resources, well, have the data to support that. And then you can work with management to prioritize that work and prioritize the projects and non-project activity that those resources are working on. You need the data to do that. And that's where project management systems can be very, very helpful. So, Microsoft's approach to this, Microsoft Project is part of the overall Office 365 or the Microsoft Cloud Platform. And there are different components to that. The first of those is Dynamics 365, which includes Power Apps, Power Platform, which we'll talk about in a second. And this is your traditional HR, CRM, ERP types of applications if you're trying to track finance and marketing and sales automation. The Power Platform really comes into play as it relates to automating manual business processes and doing reporting. Power BI, which has become a very popular business analytics tool, is part of this suite as well. So we're going to look at the Power Platform as a way to do more modern project management and reporting. Microsoft 365, which includes Microsoft Project, it includes in the project suite, it includes Planner, it also includes Microsoft Teams, and this is going to be core to project management, delivery, and collaboration. We want to look at this component of it as an important one as well. And you always want to think about kind of the extension that partners like PROJILITY and other partners provide in terms of specific process, specific applications, integration, deployment, and pulling these pieces together in a way that makes sense for your enterprise. And you can think about kind of taking the best of a Microsoft 365 and meeting your business requirements. And it's going to be different from every organization. Microsoft provides a very flexible platform so you can do different processes and automate different things, whether you're mature, limited maturity, you want both. You can have kind of top down, bottom up. You can do kind of basic project management, kind of modern or traditional as well, all on a single platform. And leading the way really is Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams, ever since the pandemic, has really become the hub for a lot of organizations around collaboration and teamwork. Really where SharePoint was 5, 6, 7 years ago, Teams is really headed there now. And we see a lot of value in this in terms of the chats, being able to set up instant meetings and chat with people, having online meetings and doing calls, also being able to collaborate on your documentation. And behind the scenes, what's behind Teams is SharePoint and SharePoint Online. So that's the underlying technology for a lot of the collaboration, but also being able to set up meetings, share documents, and also at the bottom, you see project information. This is becoming more important and more prevalent. What does that look like? Well, we're looking at measuring things like portfolios and projects and resources, whether it's schedules, whether it's information about your project schedules, whether it's updating documentation, again, stored on these SharePoint sites, whether it's specific reporting and status reports or dashboards for senior management, really using Teams as the user interface, but also visualizing information, whether it's in project or DevOps or Teams. You can kind of think of this as all in one place. Teams really becomes your visualization hub for all the data. And so what we're going to show you next is kind of what this world looks like from a demonstration perspective. Our take on the world is you want to think about where you are process-wise. You could be in a crawl state. What does that mean from a process and technology state? Well, that means maybe in a project management world, you want to do basic scheduling. You want to do some very basic high-level resource assignments. You may want to do some task progress tracking. You want to do some document management, some basic reporting and capturing project metadata. In that case, the stack we're going to look at is Microsoft Teams, Project, behind that, SharePoint Online, OneNote is working as a collaboration tool, Power BI, and potentially pulling in Power Apps to capture project-related metadata. So we're going to start with the crawl in the demonstration, then we're going to move on to the walk after that. So I'm going to hop into the demonstration now. And you'll see here we are in Office 365. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log in here, and I'm just going to go into the project icon, which gets us to our project home. This is our unified landing page for our projects, whether they're the more complex enterprise projects or the kind of the simpler bottoms-up business projects that are being managed. What we're going to do to begin with is we're going to go into this project, which is built with a tool called Project for the Web, which is Microsoft's foundational project management tool set. And this is where a lot of the investments are going. When we talk about modern project management, this is where Microsoft is spending a lot of its time and its resources. You can see here we've opened the update website contents project. And you see we've got a schedule here that's been built out, and it has about 120 or 130 tasks, a traditional list of activities. You see we've got duration, start and finish, work, percent complete, very visual, very intuitive, very easy to use. But importantly, on any of these tasks, if I just click on them, click here, I get all the information about it. So one of the key activities of our project charter phase is developing a strategy and a plan. We've got a start and a finish date. We've got a duration. We can put it in a bucket. We can prioritize that work. We can, if we're in an agile world, put it in a certain sprint. We can also create checklists, which is new functionality Microsoft has released. We can also start to estimate the effort if we want to. How many hours are going to be expended against this task and total, and how much is remaining. So we can keep that information up to date. But we can also look at what this task depends on. In this case, it depends on task 3, identifying the goals and objectives, which is assigned to 3 people. We can add dependencies here, and then we can come down here and look at other information. This is what we can do on each task and activity. But importantly, on this task, we've assigned a certain resource. So when I go in here, I can assign one or multiple resources to that task and activity, and then they will be notified that they are now responsible for updating this activity or this task. You can see I've got this other task here that has 3 resources associated with it. So as you're building out your work plan, you can start to assign resources. All those resources are part of an Office 365 group, in this case for project management, and they are part of that team that would now have access to this project. So what we do is we start building out the project. We can start to visualize this, but we can start doing is start assigning these tasks to different individuals. We have different charts that are available here. So you can see we have 92 tasks that are left, 3 that are late, 5 that are in progress. We can put tasks into different buckets. So we can see what's in planning, monitoring. But from a resource perspective, down here in this pre-built chart, there's effort per person. So I can see for down here, Sonny Crockett, he has about 136 hours of work he hasn't started. He's got about 132 hours that are late, and he's got 216 hours that have been completed on this particular project. If I hop over to the board view, this is a traditional Kanban. And what this is showing us is now we visualize our tasks. Kanban has become a very, very powerful mechanism for visualizing, assigning, and tracking work. In this case, we've got our phases: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and closing. Then we've got the different tasks or activities that are here. So if I wanted to go in here and take a task or activity and move it from planning to execution, I could simply drag and drop it. Or if I wanted more information on this task or activity, I could drill into it and see more information right from here. You see, it's very quick, very easy, very intuitive. I don't have to be an expert in the Microsoft Project Desktop client to look at this information. But in this case, I can group this information in a different way. I can do by assigned to, maybe I can look at all the tasks that have been progress or not started. But importantly, I have this people tab. This is where we can start doing some of our resource planning. So you can see I've got all the tasks down here in the different phases, planning, initiation, but at the top, I've got the different resources. So on this project, I've got 3 people working. I've got the administrator, I've got Sonny Crockett, and then I've got Todd Henry. So what I can do here is I can take tasks and activities and I can drag and drop them over to different resources as I create them, and I can assign them to different people during different phases of the life cycle. And you'll start to see how many tasks are incomplete and late, and I'll have a little bar, 2 tasks that are late, 2 that are incomplete. And then I could do a filter and say, okay, just show me the ones that are late right now for each resource. And now when I'm sitting with the team, I could say, okay, Sonny, it looks like you've got this developed strategies and plans. How far along are you? And he may tell you, well, good news, I'm almost done, about 95% done with this. I'll be completing it next Friday. And you can update the dates on this as well. So it's a great visual, intuitive way to update your information and look at it and start to understand what resources are working on what. Now, importantly, Microsoft recently released some functionality called assignments, and this requires a little extra licensing behind it. But what it is, it's more of a time phase on that work. So if I want to see specifically for Sonny, the work he has over a certain time frame, and I want to look week by week or day by day, or I can go to a weekly view of this. Now I can see during a given week on each of the tasks, develop strategies and plans. I can see this week he has 32 hours, next week he has 40. And he may come to me and say, you know what, I'm actually not going to work 40 hours. I'm going to work 20 hours on it this week. Then I'm going to do another 20 the week after. So if you want, again, this is advanced functionality, but you can start to time phase your workout if you really care about the hours associated with it. Now, with most organizations that are in more of a crawl, they're much more concerned about just the status. They just want to go in, percent complete, how many hours, and move on. So this is some of the functionality that's built in Project for the Web today that lets you do some forecasting around your resources. Well, what does this look like in Microsoft Teams? So let's hop over to Teams and let's make Teams kind of the center of our world. So what we're going to do here is we've gone to the team down here called Project Management. And that Project Management team, we have different projects. In this case, that website content update project is a core project here. And you see we have the same views of the data here. So this is a great way to collaborate with your teams. You may say, let's go to that board, or let's go to the people tab, and I can go do similar assignments that I did over there. I can drag and drop this information around. I can also do @mentions and start doing collaboration and say, well, okay, Sonny, when will we be done with the WBS, the research task that was due on Monday? You can start a collaborative thread that's going to stick with the project right here through Teams chat, which is a really, really great way to do Teams, to use Teams. We can also do is have other information here. You'll see right here, we have reports. So these are Power BI reports. And if I wanted to go in there and say, well, let's take a look, Sonny, at all of your work on this project, I could simply select Sonny. And now I can see on this particular project, if I just focus on that project, here's all the tasks and here's the status of them. So, hey, Sonny, it looks like you've got 4 or 5 or 6 tasks that are late across 2 or 3 or 4 projects. How do we address that? Have a conversation. And Sonny may say, you're right. I'm actually working on too much work right now. Here's the data to support that. Look at all the projects I'm assigned to. We can also start doing is looking at things like timelines or resources assignments here too, or take a look at a resource dashboard and say from a project management perspective, again, let's focus in on Sonny and let's look at Sonny's work. And then we can drill down. Say, just show me Sonny's projects and just show me the ones that are late right now, or just let's pick 1 or 2 or 3 projects Sonny's working on. It's pulling all that data from Project for the Web and allowing you to report on that in a very easy way. Again, show me all the tasks that are in the future versus overdue ones. I can see them all in one visual report. So this is a great way to start answering the question, hey, on this project, what's Sonny working on? And by the way, across different projects at a high level, How much work does he have? I'm not getting down to the detailed resource assignment, and I'm not looking at things like timesheets. I'm just thinking about resource overall and them being overworked or having more work than they have availability to meet. So now I can answer that core question, what is Sunny working on? Finally, you can get things like weekly status updates. You'll be able to use integrated OneNote to capture all the notes and start capturing things like, hey, we've got a resource assignment challenge here. We need to really talk to our resource manager about reassigning some tasks and activities. Finally, right through Teams on this particular project, we're going to be able to view all the documents. So now we can see the contracts and the deliverables. Again, think of Teams as the hub for all of this data. Instead of sending people to the unique project management application, you as a project manager can do that. And then the teams can work together in Microsoft Teams to do all their collaboration, visibility, update tasks and activities all in one place. Okay? So this is a good example of really kind of that crawl phase where you want to start tracking, as we mentioned before, basic resources, basic scheduling, some basic task statusing, documents, some reporting, and some basic project information or metadata. So when we move beyond this, we start looking at the walk phase. What is walk? So we're taking that and we're building on top of it. We're starting to look at an intake process and having some basic project approvals. We may start looking at doing more formal resource management, which will encompass planning on supply and demand and also doing time and task management. Now I want to capture time in those different buckets and have some kind of a timesheet and also be able to aggregate this at a portfolio level. I may start integrating agile projects in as well and also doing issue and risk management. In this case, what are the tools? Should look pretty familiar. We're still using Teams at the front end. We're still using Project and different components of the project suite. We're still using SharePoint. We may be pulling Power Apps in here as well to integrate some process-specific applications. We may be pulling Planner in for updates to notifications to different tasks or assignments outside of a project schedule or activities. And we're using Power BI as well. So what does this look like? Well, let's hop in. Again, back to our demo environment. We're going to hop back into projects here. In this case, we're actually going to go into our PPM application. And this is where we're going to start doing our resource management. What does that look like? Well, that's where we're going to be able to go in and look at our resource utilization. Again, this is using Project Online or what Project Server Subscription Edition. This is where we have a central resource pool, and we're going to be able to denote skills behind certain resources, like my product developers or my product engineers, and different metadata. Are they part of a team? Do they have a generic code? Who is their manager? But what we can do here is, because we have all this data, we can start going in and doing a couple of things. Number one, we can look at their resource capacity. Number two, we can look at all the work a resource has assigned. We can also get updates and reminders when a resource changes. But finally, we can also go in and get resource requests. Really important. And this may be a more advanced function where people are going to request a specific resource. You're going to be able to go and fulfill that demand with a certain resource based on capacity. Now, what we're going to be able to do here is click on the resource capacity, and now we can get charts and graphs that show us in real time, are we over or under our capacity? If we look at our current resource workload against our forecasted workload that hasn't been fulfilled yet, our demand, now we can start seeing, hey, I have certain months here where I'm over capacity, other ones where I have an opportunity to take on not only the work in the pipeline, potentially future work. Really important to get this data. And then on each resource, we're going to be able to set a capacity. Then we're going to be able to assign them to different work, whether it's maintenance work, operations work, or project work, and start to debit from that capacity to say I've got certain people, engineers, that are positively or negatively available. Other ones do have availability. So if you need to start a project in July, Michael's probably your guy, or when it's probably not going to work unless I move some of his work around. Additionally, the PPM components have time tracking, and this is important. This takes you from simply updating a task to be able to actually update and submit time from your team members. And this is a formal timesheet where a team member then would be able to come in and log tasks against projects, log maintenance or business as usual time, which they're assigned an allocation of their time, and then start to capture administrative categories, vacation, sick, jury duty, whatever they are, so I can get a full picture of a resource's work, and you can have timesheet approvals behind this as well. So timesheets, the ability to go in and look at supply and demand are really important, doing things like named allocation, balancing assignments, percentage of a person's time, and different types or categories of work. That when you move into the walk phase of this. What does this look like in Teams? Well, again, using Teams as the front end, we may have a resource manager team down here at the bottom. We're just going to click on that and go to the first channel. First thing you're going to see is a resource dashboard. What this is going to do, this is Power BI pulling from all the sources of data. It could be your PPM system, PPM and your project for the web system. It could even be Azure DevOps in this case, where you're pulling to try to get a full picture of a resource's capacity and demand. And these are some Power BI reports where I could go in and say, okay, show me the role. Let's again pick on the product engineers. And now very quickly at a management level, I have a view of, for my pool of product engineers, my demand is in blue. Here's all the requested projects I have coming in. My orange line is my capacity, what I can fulfill. And then where I have negative availability, where I'm over that capacity curve. I can look at this and then I have the ability to drill down into this information if I want to, maybe into a heat map. Okay, well, let's take a look at those engineers. Let's again filter by that role. We can do role-based planning here. And now I can see here's all the engineers I have and a heat map that shows me their availability, positive, negative, or in the neutral wave. And if I look at this, I can see Sunny. If I want more information again about Sunny, I can just drill into him. And now I see all the information about Sunny and his breakdown of all of his projects, how much we're spending, what activities he's assigned to on what tasks, what his resource workload is over time. I've got the information to make good business decisions about capacity. It's really important. So now we're doing that level 2, that walk phase, where we can even come in here and look at resource work. And again, these are some templates we have. We may want to look at them by resource or by project. And again, picking on Sunny, if I come down here as well, if I look at Sunny, I click on him, he has maintenance work, he has project work going here. Then if I click on that, I can see his plan, his actual, and his remaining work as well in each of the categories and start to summarize that information. So this is a great way to start doing that balancing of supply and demand in your capacity management using a very similar set of tools. Again, we're in Office 365, we're using the project tools, we're using Teams in this case to do a lot of our reporting. We may want a time dashboard. Are people submitting their time in a proper way? Again, another Power BI report, pulling data, and now we can see how many timesheets have been created and submitted and approved, and we have compliance around this information. We wanted to do real-time capacity planning, and we could start to do more of that, and again, get into this and do resource assignments and start drilling into what people are working on all in one place. Again, leveraging a similar set of tools here. And then we have a view into all the projects and non-project activities people are working on, whether it's Agile, Waterfall, whatever they're working on is all in one place. Finally, we have the ability to request resources and potentially even look at on deck. What's coming into the pipeline from a resource perspective. I can see all of our on deck projects that are maybe part of our billing application group. What's upcoming and what are the resource demands for those kind of projects. We can start to weigh that against our actual capacity. So it really allows us to do a lot of our analysis here. And finally, if I wanted to do more of a capacity what if, there are some modeling tools we can start to leverage that start to say, hey, given the resources I have, what projects can and can't I take on? And if I were to move some of the dates on some of these projects out, what does that do to my overall portfolio? So it allows me to just do kind of level 1 portfolio planning and portfolio management. Okay. From a team member perspective, they could also use Microsoft Teams. I'm just going to go to team member here. And I'm going to go to a team member view. So what might a team member see? Well, they could come to one place where they see, again, their weekly timesheet all in one place. Come into Teams, they would update it directly through Teams, and they would submit that here. They could see a report that just shows a unified task report that pulls together data from all of their projects and all of their non-work activities all in one place, so they could see all their work together. They may be able to come in here and look at things like a team calendar. Hey, I know I'm working on this project. What's the calendar for that? And what are some of the key milestones or steps that are going on? They could submit a risk or an issue, submit new ideas, look at the notebook, or just look at a list of all their tasks all in one place. And the concept is we're using Microsoft Teams as kind of that unified window into the world. So that gives you an example of what a walk phase might be. Again, leveraging Teams, project, SharePoint, pulling in some Power Apps for some workflows and processes. Also using a little bit of Microsoft Power BI and OneNote there too. When we get to run is really a more advanced stage. A lot of organizations are really striving for run, and that really starts to add true capacity planning. Now remember, you have to have your inventory and you have to have an intake queue. Once you have that, you can successfully do capacity planning. So run builds on your crawl and your walk. It allows you to do better lifecycle management, look at different phases of projects, start to gauge resource demand and assignments. It lets you do more enterprise level scheduling across projects, looking at interdependencies across large programs, lets you do program management, A lot of organizations in a run phase start to integrate their agile information in from a DevOps or a Jira so they can really get integrated actuals and start doing financial planning and financial management. And the whole vision is to go towards more strategic portfolio management here. Really the ability to plan your portfolio at a strategic level and then manage it at a tactical level that Crawl and Walk give you. Again, what does that look like? Teams, project, SharePoint Online, start using Azure DevOps, Power BI. We have different components that do data warehousing, SPM kind of applications. So really think about kind of getting to that next level with Run. Flying, we find very few organizations are at this point. That's something we'll talk about at a later point in time. But really getting to the point where you're actively managing your portfolio, determining where you are and where you're going to be from a resource management perspective is absolutely critical. So, what are some good practices here around deployment? Well, the first of those on the top left, you really have to understand your maturity around project and resource management. You may want to get to Run as fast as you can, but you may barely be in a crawl phase. You got to start where you are today and grow with that over time and build yourself a 3 to 5 year roadmap where you can grow into the new functionality as well as the new processes. The box in the middle about stakeholders and process, this is probably more important around resource management than any other process in PPM. It's really understanding who has a stake in the ownership of resources. What process do you want to follow to acquire resources as it relates to projects and planning your projects and your work? That's the unique part of this. And every organization does this a bit differently, and the tools have to be set up in alignment with that. And this is where, the tools can support lots of things, but it gets back to what your process is. You want to understand your current technology and the roadmap and where are you investing and what are the right tools for the job that people can use, whether they're basic project managers that don't have any project management background or more advanced project managers doing programs and portfolios. You think about on the bottom left, the level of detail you need to make these kind of decisions. Can we do resourcing at a project level? Do we want to do it at an activity level? Do you want to do roles, individuals, or both? That's really going to drive what you're going to plan, what you're going to measure, and what you're going to be able to track. Do you need a view of all the work you have or just your projects? That's a very, very different set of questions. If I want to look at all the work, the different categories, I need to build a system or have systems that pull that information together and manage it consistently. If I just want to look at projects, well, then I maybe look at that percentage of their time, start measuring that, and then over time, start pulling all these non-project activities or kind of non-traditional project management stuff. Finally, you want to pilot this. We can't say this enough. Pilot different functionality, learn from it, grow from it, but pilot it across groups. Don't just start with one group and make it a stovepipe. Think about 3 or 4 project teams, working with them, make it successful, document the success, start to push that out to other groups and start to grow that functionality over time. We found that's a really good recipe for success here. Obviously all this has to be done in a secure environment. And that's where Microsoft offers, whether you're in Office 365 or the Azure cloud or both, they're both combined, you need to have secure and compliant data, which is something Microsoft provides on a day-to-day basis, as well as with the Power Platform. With that, you're going to get enterprise-grade performance, access to your data in very secure data centers. You can control access through different licenses, as well as through your Azure AD, which is great. You can't just randomly push it out to people like a lot of third-party products do, and suddenly, people on the outside have access to your enterprise data. That's very, very risky. So you can control it from an IT perspective, but allow that freedom and flexibility you need to be successful and allow people to manage their projects. And finally, we talk about secure sharing of data. Be able to share information with the right people, but make sure that is secure and locked down in a way where you don't have risks to your enterprise or your organization. Just reiterating what we talked about, Microsoft Teams is that collaboration engine, the collaboration component on the front end of all this. Microsoft Project and the different project components are elements, but depending on your maturity and where you are, they're going to help you manage projects, people, and work. SharePoint Online is the component that's going to help with a lot of the collaboration and document management behind Teams. Power BI is an analytics tool set that's going to do a lot of your reporting and dashboards throughout the lifecycle. Power Platform is going to allow you to extend a lot of your business processes through automation and build unique applications to meet specific process requirements. Planner is a great planning tool to use for kind of things outside of projects, whether it's you come out of a status meeting and you have activities and meeting minutes, you want to assign tasks to people. Planner is a great use case for that. It is not a project management tool. It's a task and collaboration tool that's very, very visual, but it can add into your project management lifecycle. And finally, Azure DevOps, which is a great tool a lot of enterprises are using today to do their enterprise collaboration around their projects as it relates to agile work and development work as well. And these tools can all be designed to work together. The value adds we can provide at PROJILITY are assisting with the proper planning and deployment, choosing the right tools, deciding what you're going to integrate and how you're going to integrate, providing training and ongoing support. We also have some pre-built components, a pre-built connector between PPM and Teams automate the creation of those teams as you create projects. We've got a data warehouse and a BI product that actually sits in Power BI that enables better access to your data, whether you need enterprise class reporting or simple data from your project management tool. And finally, we have an e-learning offering, an e-learning platform that'll provide all the training on an online platform should you want to subscribe to that. If you want more information on any of these components, feel free to email us info@PROJILITY.com. So really the benefits and wrapping up of really a well-planned approach, choosing the right technology and rolling it out properly, you'll save a lot of time. Instead of just jumping into a tool and figuring it out and coming back in 12 months and going, I kind of realized we didn't do this right. It'll save you a lot of time. An investment of 3 or 6 months up front goes a long way to getting a lot more benefit and setting expectations, but also your executives will have a lot more confidence in the things you're doing and delivering. Cost savings, jumping in and turning on licenses is very simple, but spending the time with experienced resources to plan it out so that you get this done in an efficient way so people aren't working in different ways in the same tool, and then you have inconsistent data and you wonder, is it a tool problem? Is it a process problem? Usually it's a deployment problem. You'll see a lot of productivity improvements and enhancements. People will be more available to do some of their work. They'll spend less time going between different tools because they'll know exactly where to go to plan and update their work. Your data is all secure and trustworthy in a trustworthy data center through Microsoft. It's all scalable. So what you start with projects, we find a lot of organizations can start thinking bigger. Hey, we've got a strategic program over here we want to manage. We already have a project management platform. Let's just scale that up to support a program. Or now we want to start doing portfolio management, strategic or tactical. Well, you can start doing that once you have that inventory and you're planning and managing your work. You can start thinking about doing more strategy and portfolio management in the tool. And it's all a setup for what we call strategic resource and portfolio management, the ability to go and do top level planning across your portfolio as you're doing your execution level, kind of your blocking and tackling, a lot of the things we showed you today. So these are really some recommendations and some benefits of going down the road. Planning is the key. If you spend time planning, you'll get a lot more results versus just jumping into the tools. And as you can see, there's a lot of different components here. Picking the right ones that meet your requirements is absolutely important. So at this point, I'm going to hand the presentation back to Annie, who'll be reviewing any questions in the Q&A queue before we get into some of the feedback and giveaways. Annie?
Hey, Rob, we have a few questions. Ken asked, the board view of resource assignments looks good with a small number on the team. How is this management accomplished when the team has 200 people?
That's a really big challenge for any board. And that's a really good question. I mean, again, think of the use case. It's really small to mid-sized projects, smaller project teams. If you're looking at a bigger approach like that, it's not just about getting a bigger screen. You may want to look at the enterprise solution versus, the basic project or the web solution, but you have different options there. So it's unfortunately, there's not a good, easy way to visualize 200 resources and all the tasks without going into more of a PPM environment where you have a central My Task list and you can do more enterprise class resource management. So that's the recommendation.
Camille asked, is Microsoft creating a tool or app that will host similar functions as Jira or ServiceNow for agile efforts? Currently, Project isn't a great solution for agile scheduling or management.
Good question, Camille. So yeah, absolutely. Microsoft has a tool called Azure DevOps or ADO, sometimes called Azure Boards. That is Microsoft's entry into the developer collaboration marketplace. It used to be called Team Foundation Server, and it's an application you can subscribe to. It's available through as an add-on to Office 365 that allows you to track iterations and sprints, tasks and issues, burn downs. It's really designed around an agile or development framework as well. So that is the tool that Microsoft has, and it's been in the market for TFS, I think, since 2011. And now the cloud version is called Azure DevOps. You may want to take a look at that.
Looks like our last remaining question from Michelle is, what were you showing a project online timesheet? And is it tied to all execution tools to pull in their tasks and activities?
Got it. Yeah, so the answer to the first question is yes, it was a project online timesheet. The second one is, in this case, it was pulling directly from Project Online data. You could, in theory, pull data from other systems, have that populate some of your project data, and then show up in that timesheet. We have organizations that do that today. So that is definitely a capability, but that would require integration.
Project public website to sign up for a free trial of Microsoft's latest Project for the Web solution, or to read more about these solutions. I'm Annie Levan with PROJILITY. On behalf of all of us, thank you so much for joining today. We'll look forward to seeing you at future sessions. Have a great day. Thank you.